go to Houston.
Okay.
4-8 last season, over under 6-5 or 6.5, excuse me. Year one for Willie Fritz, came over from Tulane. I think it went about as well as expected. There were some bright spots that you can point to. They knocked off both Utah and K-State on back-to-back weeks, which is nice. They almost beat Oklahoma in week 2. That was before we knew what Oklahoma was going to be. But still, that's a pretty big game. The other thing I'd mention here is that they had terrible turnover luck. Awful turnover luck.
Okay.
Moving forward now, the overwhelming feeling I get when I look at Houston is, they've got a plan. It feels calm. And I'd be surprised if they weren't markedly better this season. Just feels to me like Willie Fritz knows what he's doing and he's got a plan.
Well, you need quarterback health.
You do.
Which is not always a given. Conner Weigman, yeah.
Let me start with the coordinators, okay? I like the coordinators. Slade Nagel is the offensive guy. He was with Willie at Tulane. They also peeled away Austin Armstrong from Florida because of Florida's situation. He was kind of on the outs at Florida anyway. So on offense, I think that looks like a pretty balanced attack. On defense, the thing about Austin Armstrong that I really like in this situation, and not a lot of people know this, definitely runs more of an aggressive attacking defense.
Oh, you have to.
Yeah, definitely runs. It's aggressive. Actually, this was a top 50 defense a year ago under Sheil Wood. Sheil Wood, I talked on the last episode, went to Texas Tech. Yeah. So I like those guys. I think that's smart hires. On the transfer side, to your point about you need a quarterback, you need a healthy roster. 30 transfers, and it feels like the strategy here was just to get better where they needed it. Not unlike Texas Tech. I described the Texas Tech strategy as Willie Fritzy. We can describe the Houston strategy here as Texas Techy if we want. I don't care. It works both ways.
Okay.
People out there are going to hear this and say, well, duh. Duh, isn't that the point of it? I'm telling you, when you study 136 teams, you have drastically different portal strategies. Not all of them are this straightforward. They just aren't. So the biggest name here is Conner Weigman, former 5-star, comes over from Texas A&M. He's from Houston, which is pretty neat. And I think they just added quality across the board. They have a couple different ways to use their running back room. They brought in a lot of experience along the offensive line. Again, just smart stuff. It makes sense. We should see a nice jump in offense, which would be nice. I'm all about that.
Agree.
So I feel good about that side of the ball. My red flag is this. Where's my Lamas thing?
I kind of have a problem with your hair. It's bothering me.
Of course.
I like the defensive front. I think the linebackers, I think the secondary are way more up in the air. And they've got a new scheme. They added new transfers. I could see this taking a while to click. Now, they have some time to work that out because September is gettable. The rest of the schedule is okay.
It's a lot of snip-snap. There's not a lot of stretchiness in here. There's not a lot of 3 straight toughies. I think they end with a couple of tough ones. It's TCU and Baylor.
That's right.
To finish things out.
TCU and Baylor after a bye to finish things out in late November. Yeah.
But that's preceded by West Virginia and UCF. They've got Arizona before Arizona State and Oklahoma State before Arizona. Oregon State, which I think will be improved, but not a killer, before Texas Tech. Colorado we'll see, but that's preceded by Rice, who's starting over, and Stephen F. Austin. The schedule's pretty good.
The schedule's not bad. I mean, no Kansas State, no Iowa State, no Utah. Right. And Vegas is right there at 6.5 with the over-under. So I would not bet on the over, but you can definitely look at this, and if you feel optimistic about the offense, and if you think that in time the defense will click under a good coordinator, or an aggressive coordinator, let's be honest, you could find a path to 7 wins here.
Oh, easily.
7.
You could find a path to 7 or 8 wins with quarterback health, with transfers working out to a reasonable level. I think it's Stephon Johnson out wide. I think he's a speedy dude. Like, there are pieces here. It's just the churn at a place like Houston means you gotta nail the portal. I mean, gotta nail the portal everywhere, obviously. But the certain places are just gonna have more of a churn that they're just not gonna be able to compete from a financial perspective. That, they're losing a coordinator, they're improving at quarterback, but it's somebody who's a little bit fragile in Conner Weigman, unfortunately. So you hope and cross your fingers for quarterback health there. And you hope that they're able to get off the field. Again, Willie Fritz, and we've talked about this before, year 2.
Yep. Year 2 coach. He's a good year.
Real solid track record.
Very good year 2 coach. And I think this is where context is really important for Houston. If this were a situation where you're looking at this defense, any other team, you're looking at the defense and you say, well, I like the front. The back seven's going to be a work in progress. It's going to take a little bit to kind of work through it. But look at the schedule. The schedule makes sense. They're going to have time. You would be okay to hand wave parts of that. The reason that you can't do it with Houston is because they're still sort of in this rebuilding mode. If the rest of the roster were more set, if there were more leadership, if this were a couple years down the path of Willie Fritz, and you had more of a bedrock to go on here with Houston, you'd say, okay, they can weather that. They'll be fine. They're going to get to a bowl, no big deal. Might not get the 9 wins, but they'll be fine. But given where Houston's at, given that this was a huge rebuild last season, given that he's still rebuilding and bringing in all these transfers, I think that weighs a little bit more heavily on the record. So I go 7 wins here. I like, or 6 wins here with a path to 7 or 8. I like where Houston's at. I like the job that Willie Fritz is doing. I think it's a slow build, and I would expect they'll give him time because they're going to see it too. There's going to be a jump this year that's going to show real progress and hopefully keep people, excited.
I hope so too. Yeah, because I think, as we've seen, the best of Houston is a team that was one weird play from beating Texas with Dana Holgorsen a couple years ago, right? Was a January-type bowl team with Tom Herman. We're talking about a different era of college football, of course. But just in terms of what that university can attract, especially if they're able to engage the money behind the scenes, and what the local recruiting is like, both from like guys coming back to East Texas and that want to stay local, you can accomplish a bunch at Houston. So, yeah, fingers crossed for them.